Allow me to quote a very profound book I came across. Is by an economist called Robert Lupton. Robert Lupton actually theorizes that, not really theorizes, but draws conclusions that there is a positive relationship between the amount of poverty people accumulate and the levels of free things they get used to.
Oh, yes. Welcome everyone to the first episode of the Smarter Tomorrow podcast by SBM Bank, your bank for a smarter tomorrow. I'm very happy to have you guys on here. And today's episode is going to be quite exciting. Today we are talking about how to make your money work for you. And today I am joined by my guest, Mr. Simon Wafubwa, who is the CEO and the founder of Enwealth. And I would like to give him a chance to introduce himself, and then we can get started.
Thank you so much for having me on the show. This is truly exciting. Discussing money issues in an economic environment where people are complaining about taxes, inflation, the cost of fuel going up. So this is really timely. And as you've heard, my name is Simon Wafubwa. I have been in the financial services sector for more than 20 years. And my passion is to see people securing a lifetime of financial well-being and dignity. So looking forward to the show.
I love it. Thank you. Today we are having a conversation about how to make our money work for us.
Yes.
And I'd like to put you on the spot for a minute, yeah?
Okay.
How have you been making your money work for you over the years? What is your journey? How did you start, like even just as an individual? And how have you been making your money work for you over the years?
So I think for me, the starting point was the realization that money answers to why rather than how.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yes. And so you have to start with your money why. So why must you have a lot of money? I'll just give you basic examples. Have you ever noticed when you have a lot of money, people call you often? Sherehe and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And when you don't have money, not many people would call you because money answers to why before you answer to how. So some 20 years ago, I came up with my money why. I wrote it down, which I would call my money vision.
Okay.
And the whole philosophy around it is that anything that you're not clear of purpose, abuse will be inevitable.
That's true.
But when you are so clear of the why you are having it, you are likely to be a good steward of it in the intended purpose that you have for that item.
True.
And so is money. So I did put that together, and then guided by that, I was able to formulate my personal financial planning strategy. Success is intentional. Progress in life is not a big bang theory.
Yeah.
Like you wake up in the morning and it's boom. No. You shape the future you want to become today. But themed out of that money why, I developed 5 pillars that support sustainably the actualization of money why, my future money why. And one was social capital.
Wow.
Okay, and that's a key one because I said it's in your networks that you have your net worth. The people around you, if 5 people around you are warrior, you are likely to be the 6th one.
Yeah.
And if 5 people around you are always, having challenges, you are likely to be the 6th one.
Yeah.
And it's in your social networks that you learn your money language. It's in your social networks that you get to have access to investment opportunities.
Yeah.
It's in your social networks that you develop also what I call your attitude towards investments and also your philosophy in terms of risk appetite.
True.
It's in your social networks. And so I came up with a philosophy that I develop my social networks in alignment to the future I am becoming rather than the past I have been.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah. And so social capital is key. And I have a framework in terms of how I select my inner cycles. Okay.
Yeah.
That continually I can learn from them and then get to improve on my the future I am becoming.
Yeah.
So that's one. And then two is financial pillar. And that has to do with basically the sort of investments, financially speaking, that I have to put my money into to generate a return that speaks into my money why. Okay. And then the third pillar is knowledge capital.
Okay.
So knowledge, visions eat and they eat knowledge. If you don't feed your vision, it will die.
Yeah.
Now, what happens with knowledge is that you bring your knowledge into just what I would call this stock exchange of knowledge. Okay?
Yeah.
You would price your knowledge by way of the revenue you are able to monetize based on your knowledge. So there are different levels. You increase your knowledge capital, you are likely to command higher value.
That's true. Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So sometimes you find people are just focusing on money, but they're not working on their skill.
Knowledge base. Yeah.
Okay? World Economic Forum have projected by the year 2030 up to 42% of the skill set because of technology. Those 42% of the competencies are obsolete because of AI. Even just to give you examples in the financial services sector, there are online tools that can risk price your risk appetite, develop your portfolio strategies, and place your investments and generate returns for you.
Yeah.
Generate reports and tell you how much you're making. And those are all AI.
Yeah.
And so that's just knowledge capital. And then the other pillar that I developed that speaking to my vision is then also spiritual capital. Because in there you get inspiration that is
Yeah.
able to inform you the future, the direction that you have to become. And then the last one is, of course, my behavior and character.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
That's very, very powerful. I love that you've mentioned behavior and character.
Yes.
Because I read somewhere the one thing that has changed my mindset around money for the longest time
Yes.
has been that your success in personal finance
Correct.
is like 20% head knowledge, which is what we think is the biggest impact.
Yes.
And 80% mindset and behavior,
Correct.
right?
Yeah.
Like how you behave around money, how you think about money,
Yeah.
that contributes to your success to personal finance more than how much you know about, 50, 30, 20 budgeting rule,
Yeah.
or where to invest or how these investments work. Which brings me to something I love to talk about, which is the psychology of money, right?
Yes, yeah.
And I had a question for you, right? When you hear like psychology of money, because for me, psychology of money is just about wired behind just what we've mentioned, behavior,
Yeah.
Relationship with money, mindset.
Yeah.
In my nature of work, I meet people who are very intentional in
Yeah.
personal finance, but for one reason or the other, they're not able to move past a particular level
Yeah.
because of things like, say, a scarcity mindset,
Yeah.
an abundance mindset.
Yeah.
You know what you're supposed to do, but you can't seem to overcome impulse buying, impulse spending, you
Yeah.
know? So much as you want to work on investing and saving, there's always like a mindset, a behavior, an attitude that
Yeah.
prevents you. What would you say are attitudes about wealth that have influenced whether, that influence whether someone is able to make money or not? If I was to ask, is there such a thing as a psychology that keeps you broke and another that keeps you, or helps you to grow wealth?
Yeah. So this is so profound. What I would want to say is that our attitude, our financial attitude, determines our financial altitude. Attitude is simply behavioral. Well, how do I respond when I have opportunities to save or spend? Okay?
Yeah.
And it starts with being aware of ourselves. And it could be as basic as doing a SWOT analysis or doing a Johari window
concept,
from a financial behavior perspective.
Yeah.
So you build a personal level of awareness in terms of knowing what are your weaknesses, what are your threats, opportunities, and strengths in terms of money relationship.
Yeah.
And out of that, then you can be able to develop what we call your money personality profile. In there lies the opportunity of how your response mechanisms when it comes to money. There are people, I'll tell you, I've worked in the financial services sector for more than 20 years, and I've seen this. You pay someone like a retirement package of around 10 million. They were used for 20 years, 30 years they were working. They were used to cash lump sums monthly of around 100 to 100,000 per month. Now, in their psychological steady state money-wise, they are not used to handling a lump sum of 10 million.
That's true.
So that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
So in chemistry, there was a principle called Le Chatelier principle that a system that is in steady state equilibrium will continue in that steady state unless there is external pressure. If there is, it will adjust itself to go back to that psychological steady state. Same, you get 10 million, your financial psychological steady state is 100,000.
Yeah.
So 10 million is a distortion.
It's bewildering.
So what happens? I have to look for mechanisms of quickly reducing this 10 million to go back to that 100,000 steady state.
And that's psychological?
So, absolutely.
Oh my
so
goodness.
What do? I have to look for people to help me finish the money quickly.
And buy that new car I've always wanted.
And then drive yourself into that consumption and spending. Go to Mombasa, pigia mwili pole. And of course, our men will look for some people, consultants, who will help them to efficiently help them bring them. And then immediately, when they are back to that psychological steady state, this is amazing. First is that their demeanor changes. They become very humble. Even when they call...
When the money is over.
Yes, they will call the accountant in the organization that they left. And then naomba, nauliza, uliweka tax, hiyo pesa. You get that kind of questions. So they get back to that level of soberness when they are back, when their money is... So the starting point is that by understanding your money personality profile, you are likely to put in place mechanism to protect yourself.
That's true.
For example, at a personal level, I am generally a giver. Whereas giving is good, to a certain level, it can be detrimental to your sustainable financial well-being. So what do? I ensure deductions for saving happen at source. They don't land in my account.
You pay yourself first.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So if it is for investments, it has to happen at source to go into the various investments. But then, if you are a giver and you have many relatives and dependents, where the sister of the cousin of your neighbor is still a relative, and you're obligated to support them, you find that in a high dependence, we call it black tax, it can easily drive you into financial challenges. And allow me to quote a very profound book I came across. Is by an economist called Robert Lupton. Robert Lupton actually theorizes that, not really theorizes, but draws conclusions that there is a positive relationship between the amount of poverty people accumulate and the levels of free things they get used to.
Oh, yes.
that in perpetual endeavor in pursuit of giving and supporting our relatives, we deprive them of the dignity to earn.
That's true. We are enabling them to be dependents.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And he says that the first time you give, someone will say thank you. The second time, they will expect. The third time, they will anticipate. The fourth time, you will. It's a right. You have established dependency. And so interesting that some few years ago, I sent 10,000 to someone. Haikuwa deni. I was just helping. After a week, there was no even SMS to say I received the money. So I called, I asked, did you receive the money? And they told me, yeah, tulipata lakini huko umeweka ya kutoa.
Wow.
So I asked, kwa hivyo hamtatoa?
Oh, wow.
I think we had reached that dependency.
Yeah.
So first is that by understanding your money personality profile, you are likely to put in place risk mitigation mechanisms to safeguard yourself and remaining steadfast in terms of savings and investments.
Yeah. I love that you've mentioned safeguarding, because like even for my own personal experience, and I always love to share like my own personal experiences, because as I told you, understanding my money personality and working on my money psychology has been the biggest shift in my finances, right?
Yes.
So I grew up poor. I grew up not seeing money or experiencing money. Obviously, because there's no money, then you also hear things like money does not grow on trees and things like that. And that can do two things to a person. One, either you're going to become a very someone who is not able to release money. So even the little that you have, stingy, scarcity mentality. On a personal level, it is stingy. But I've also seen that the scarcity mindset of someone who hoards, and that was pretty much, of course, we have different personalities. We have a spender, a hoarder, and all that. For me, it was hoarding.
Yes.
And it was pretty much because money is so scarce in my mind. So one, you think you're being safe, but it actually prevents you in a way. Because even on instances where I could have been investing my money, I wanted it to sit in my M-Pesa where I can see it. Or in my bank.
Good.
And it feels good. But in the long run, you cannot save your way to wealth.
Correct.
You have to invest your money. Even when it came to how I think about my ability to make money, I was just here. So even the jobs I'm looking for, the kind of income I'm prospecting for, I'm not thinking big. That is like one effect of someone who grew up poor. Another person who grew up poor could probably even end up now revenge spending. It's almost like you are now, unataka kuonyesha umaskini. You really need, like, I'm never going to lack again. And that person...
Kutumia pesa ikuzoea.
Exactly, you know? So what happens is that much as this person, no matter how many times you try to tell them about thinking about their future or saving or investing, there's just something at the back of their mind because of how they grew up and how they saw money being handled that prevents them from that proper balance. So I love that you've mentioned putting measures in place, right? If I was to ask you 3 habits that you think would help the people listening to us today to become consistent savers and investors, what would those be?
One is that I think deductions at source really help.
So putting a standing order.
A standing order, that really helps.
Yeah.
And in group dynamics theory, we tend to conform to a pattern. So saving through a group, you are likely to have commitment and accountability. Stuff like chamas, that really comes in because if we're saving towards a common cause as a group and my colleagues have contributed and I haven't, then you feel guilty.
You're the only one who hasn't.
So then you have to do that. Okay? And then, of course, the third one is just to ensure that I have a budget that guides. to what
Yes.
extent
Yes.
am I saving? Because as much as we think about saving, it's important that we strike balance so that you don't oversave or you don't undersave.
Undersave, yeah.
Okay? And there has to be a balance around that. You find sometimes people, they save. Whereas saving is important, but I also think that there need to be a fair level of balance.
Yeah.
And talking about the scarcity mindset, around that 20 years ago, I actually developed a personal mantra. And I say that resources have never been scarce, only resourceful minds are.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Okay?
Resources have never been scarce. Did you
Yes.
hear that, guys?
Yes. Yeah.
Only resourceful
resourceful
minds
minds
are.
So pesa iko.
Ni wewe tu juu maliko.
Pesa iko
Yeah.
kwa wingi.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just then for us to have the mindset first to understand that money is there. Once you have that understanding, then you have to go to the next level. How do I get it? And why must I get it?
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
And then you develop a plan that works towards that.
I love that. You've mentioned planning, and I know budgeting is very essential
Yes.
when it comes to like having a healthy financial life
Yes.
and making your money work for you.
Correct.
So that you can have a smarter tomorrow.
Yes.
And I one of my favorite personal finance enthusiasts, his name is Dave Ramsey. He describes budgeting in an interesting way. He says that budgeting is telling your money where to go instead of wondering where it went. And
Yes.
that's pretty much what most people are doing at the end of every month, right? Where did my money go to? I do remember getting my salary,
Yes.
but I can't quite tell you where the money went, right? One of my favorite essentials for budgeting has always been to have a tool.
Okay.
So whether you're doing an Excel sheet, and now in the age of digital, we can use apps.
Correct.
And for me, I've always been such a proponent of do not budget in your head.
Yes.
You will not remember. We live in
Correct.
such a distracted
Yeah.
world. If you truly want to budget, you need to put it down. You need to write it down.
Correct.
So that is one of the biggest essentials I find works very well when
Yes.
it comes to budgeting, having a tool. For you, what's your essential in budgeting? Like what do you think, or what can you share with us is something that you think could make budgeting easier, accessible, more doable, or what has worked for you with regards to budgeting?
So first is that we shouldn't work for budget. It's just a tool to guide.
Yeah.
Rather, the budget works for us. So agility, adaptability is key because the external variables are always changing.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
you wake up today, you find the fuel cost has gone up. And you cannot, in a changing world, you have to change with change. Otherwise, it becomes the change. You have to adapt. So in budgeting, adaptability is key. Certain expense lines might drop.
Yes.
Might increase. So we must be responsive to the realities of the environment
I love that.
we are in. In a changing world, we can't afford to be a fixed asset. Straight line depreciation will be a reality.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
We preserve value by being adaptive. And that's key. But we should be adaptive, but still maintaining focus. When you remain loyal to your vision provides.
That's true. Wow.
You know you can adapt and abandon your lifelong purpose. Adapt, but you still remain relevant.
Focused on the vision.
On your long-term goals.
Yeah.
Okay? You know you will still be there, but this is just a process. Okay? Accountability is key. So you've got to check out in terms of who am I accountable, so that there are checks and balances in budgeting. And then I think knowledge is important. The cost of ignorance is very expensive.
Quite, yeah.
So we mitigate certain risks through knowledge. And it helps to get a coach. Okay? It helps to get a coach. I actually have a few lessons around football that goes with money. You find every football team, no matter the talent, they have a coach to bring out the very best.
That's true.
So people have marriage counselors, but when it comes to money, they don't have a marriage,
A counselor.
a counselor or a financial coach. And you are here. They need to look for you.
Definitely, definitely.
So that they have a smart tomorrow, like with SBM Bank.
Yes,
Okay.
Yeah.
In football, you have diversification. I normally say strikers are like equities. Midfield is like fixed income securities.
Wow.
They buy some through liquidity, through balls.
Yeah.
Defense is like real estate, hedging against volatility. Okay. Each team has a reserve bench. Okay, those are emergency funds.
Emergency funds. I love that.
Each team has what you call substitutes are allowed. So you could be holding on that particular asset. The return is negative.
It's time to let go.
Emotionally connected to that asset. Sell it. Put it into a bond. Now is 15% and get higher value. And there are half times. So periodic reviews.
I love that.
Okay, of your progress. And whichever way you look at it, the game will end. So play with the end
in mind.
Oh, wow. And then finally, I am yet to see a team that when they score and say, let's just accumulate goals, we'll celebrate later. No, celebrate every win moment. Sasa pigia mwili yako pole, but don't overdo it. 10% of the income you get, you celebrate.
I love that. When I'm talking about budgeting and teaching about budgeting, that's the one thing, especially that last thing you've mentioned, kupigia mwili pole. I feel like when it is left unaddressed, like you feel bad putting it in your budget, either way you will still end up spending unintentional money on enjoyment. For me, budgeting is about balancing between savings and investments, debt repayments, mandatory bills and expenses, but also wants and leisure, right? Because the truth of the matter is that if I don't budget for leisure, unless I know for a fact I'll be leaving work and locking myself in the house all weekend, then that's the only way to prove I'm actually not going to use money. But if I have tea with you, that's entertainment money.
Absolutely.
If I have Sunday lunch with my children after church, that's entertainment money.
Correct.
So it's still unaccounted for if you ignore it. And for me, budgeting has always been, like, I like to think about it like budgeting for my best life. So what does my best life look like, right? And then making my budget work around that.
Correct.
So that, and I found that makes me hate budgeting less. Because most people hate budgeting. When you tell them to budget, it almost feels like, huyu mtu anataka kuniambia nisienjoy pesa yangu sasa, you know, but like you can actually include budgeting. I mean, you can include enjoying yourself in that budget, and it's no longer torture.
No.